For those who had played with a Ouija board, what is your weird experience with it? I had a nightmare, I hope, after I constructed a Ouija board in the field while I was in the army. I tempted all the spirits of the world to show themselves to me. I really scared a guy who said he had a bad experience with them, but I brushed it off. I remember waking up in the tent with my red headlamp on and seeing an old woman with sharp teeth sitting at the edge of my bed. It was terrifying. I laid back down and turned the lamp off, thinking it was just because I was tired, but I haven't touched with a Ouija board since then. Years before my mom and her friend met their husbands, they used to use the Ouija board together. I believe it was in their senior year of high school. The board had predicted both of their firstborn's birth date. Her friend got February 25 and my mom got March 15. Years later, they got married and they both got pregnant around the same time. It truly was coincidence because they were not really close after school. They had crossed paths while pregnant and became close again. Reminiscing about the Ouija, and the couples got close again over the last months of their pregnancy. My mom went into labor early and had my brother on February 25. This was the date that her friend had gotten from the Ouija, which was about 8 years prior. So when March 14 came around, her friend packed her bag for the hospital and waited. Her husband thought she was insane because the date was too early for her to have the baby, but she insisted that she would have it. Turns out, that night her water broke and the baby was early by 3 weeks. The story gives me the chills, but I grew up hearing it from both of them. This one is real, folks, gives me chills to this day. So it all started out on Halloween a few years back. Me and my girlfriend of the time were going off to a Halloween party with some friends. I say party lightly because we were a pretty lame group of people. We mostly shot each other with Nerf guns and played with the arcade the family of the house had downstairs. We were playing all sorts of Halloween-y games and it was just a hoot and a holler. Amidst the tomfoolery, a Ouija board is taken out by one of my friends and put onto the floor. I am more than intrigued. Before this, my paranormal experiences were all fairly mild. There was a few light happenings that I brushed off with, it's my eyes playing tricks on me. But I'd always been intrigued. If there's something that's supposed to work, I want to find out if it does. So attention moved to Ouija, and I was on a mission for someone to play the game with me. But people were apprehensive. Apparently they had already spoke to a young girl who died near the house, and we're too shocked by the accuracy to continue. They all had enough of it already. But you only need 2 people. And there just so happened to be one other atheist at the party. A much more annoying atheist nonetheless, but that made it all the easier to get her over the fear of playing. We'll call her Madlady. She agreed, and so we sat down. Things started out as I expected. We said hi, did our circles and began. There wasn't much happening at first, but when trying to contact the little girl again, she started to respond. About 5 minutes into questioning her and we had a few answers. She wasn't very strong and moved the paddle very slowly. And before we could ask more, she was gone. No more response. I'm not content. I needed more. And so I kept querying and querying. No response. People became weary, there was a noticeable change in atmosphere. Things felt thicker. Finally I asked, starting to lose hope, if there was anyone willing to talk to us. And almost immediately the paddle shoots to yes. Okay, this isn't the little girl, let's figure out who it is. I ask it if it's a boy. We get a no. I ask if it is a girl. We get a no. My mind immediately pieces together what's happening now, and I ask, are you human? It's a no. I panic. We say goodbye right now. Right now. I tell Madlady. She immediately follows my instructions and we say our goodbyes, leaving the game where it is. Heavy. Things are heavy. Everyone feels what just happened, everyone there except for Madlady is sure I just communicated with a demon. And now it's here. People started to get sick, groans began to fill the once cheery party. My Christian religious nut ex starts to pray with people, bringing her cross around. It's making people feel better and the general vibe begins to recover. But not for me. I'm still so heavy. I try to ignore it, but I can't help thinking it feels like someone is tugging at my soul. Testing it. Heavy. The heaviness just keeps increasing. My whole chest is being compressed. I sank into the couch I had sat down on. Heavier and heavier. I wasn't purposefully doing it, I'm sure everyone at this point saw me as nothing more than very relaxed. But I was alone on this couch. My ex was still praying and helping people, and I was very far from the group that had formed around my ex. My body completely freezes at this point, and I'm only able to dart my eyes around. That's when the first flash came. It was hard to make out anything the first few times. It was just an image I couldn't quite make out. They started out slowly, every few minutes or so. Things began to pick up speed, the flashing increased and held for longer. Long enough for me to see what's happening now. Flash, it's just my friends? Flash. My friends. They're terrified of something? Flash. They're terrified of me? What is this? Flash. Red lines begin to appear on their necks. They're all so scared, they're absolutely petrified. The flashes increase. The lines increase. The terror increases. The lines become more, they're really hurt now. More flashing and I'm the one doing it? Flash flash. Their vital fluid is everywhere, they are all slumped over and mutilated. Everyone except my ex again. She never was hurt, she just got more terrified. During this, the weight continues to grow, and I literally feel like I'm fighting over my soul. I get up, suddenly thawing out and immediately pace over to the door and back. This caught everyone's attention. I must have had some insane horror on my face. I sat back down and immediately asked my ex to come over, remembering that she's the only one I didn't see get hurt. I kind of hid behind her as the flashes started to slow. I still felt that weight of something being there, but it had subsided a great deal and the flashes had stopped. We left the party and my ex turns to me as she shuts her door. She really wanted to know what TF was going on with me in there. I explained the flash to her, and she decided she wanted to make sure it was gone. She's a little bit in tune with the paranormal, and she felt something was off still. So I decided, sure, whatever if it helps. I know all the prayers anyway, Catholic family, so I started to speak along. My ex looked at me horrified after I had said a few words. She told me to stop talking and pushed on past it. I didn't get told until weeks later that I spoke in a reverse Latin in a voice that was impossible for me or any person to make. She finished the prayer and we drove the 30 minutes back to my car. The whole drive was still heavy, but I definitely was still aware of a presence. My ex saw a black cloudy entity in the back seat. Once we arrived, she prayed a few more times. I had a sense at the time, trying to rationalize all this still, that it was just a means of good energy versus dark energy. So I decided we should just say very nice things and push out an insane amount of it. A few moments into trying that and I felt the weight from my stomach fly out of the top of my head and away from me. Immediately things felt lighter. We said goodnight and parted ways for the night. My parents got my siblings and I a Ouija board for Christmas one year when we were little. I remember playing around with it, but was too young to really understand or care what it was really about. One of us would always push the planchette and give fake answers. My mom and her friends were having a kid-free girls' night at our house a few years later, and after a few drinks, one of her friends thought it would be fun to mess around with the Ouija board. After asking if anyone was there, a spirit named Hessa replied, saying she had died in the house during childbirth. Well, fast forward a decade or so and for my mom's birthday, I decided to make a scrapbook for her, complete with the history of our house from the local museum. Surely enough, a woman had died during childbirth in our house. My mom had also heard the woman in our house on a different occasion, but that's a different story, although her name wasn't Hessa. I've had friends tell me about their experiences, about their parents' experiences where people have gotten hurt by an unseen force after or while using the Ouija board. My boyfriend had a bad experience with one, but refuses to talk about it and actually gets mad when I bring it up. People can laugh all they want or choose to believe that spirits, ghosts and true evil don't exist in this world, but I believe that they do. I'm sure that the amount of energy that you commit into believing in these things contributes to the type of paranormal experiences you may encounter. This past summer, me and my friend were on a spooky kick, scary movies, sleepover games, midnight rituals. Just a bunch of stuff to freak us out. The ending of this kick was, of course, to play with a Ouija board. We bought it, then went over to our friend's house because she was house sitting and it was empty. We arrived, looked up rules, lit candles, and followed everything the internet said to do. At first we weren't getting anything. We were both wishful thinking, I think, and were subconsciously moving it at first. It was going really slow and not making any sense. So we looked up what to do if nothing was working, and it said to take a break and come back to it, so that's what we did. When we came back, as soon as we did, the board started answering our questions. I am a former self-harmer and have a self-hurting past and things like that. The first thing that alarmed me was that it said there were 13 entities in the room with us. I asked how many were bad, and it said 12 out of 13 were bad. The second thing was that it spelled out my last name. I kept asking what about it, and finally it answered that they liked me. I asked why and it said, "You bleed," which I instantly just knew they were talking about the self-harm, which was terrifying. So we stopped, said goodbye and everything and took another break. We came back and I asked it if there was something that I should know. It proceeded to tell me a very huge secret that my friend was keeping from me. She tried to stop and when she did, it gave me even more details about what happened. We stopped then because neither of us could handle it anymore. We threw the board away in a McDonald's dumpster and tried to not think about it. About 2 weeks later, the board was back and in my friend's mom's backseat. No idea how it got there. My friend knew nothing of how it got there, and her mom didn't even know we did it because we would get in huge trouble. After playing with the board for about 2 weeks after, I constantly felt watched and this deep heavy feeling walking around in my house. I heard noises constantly. One time my phone glitched and distorted the voice on the other end, then shut off. A bang went off by my face one night that sounded like someone punching the wall as hard as they could, and hearing noises in the cupboard and opening it to find cups and bowls flipped over completely or on their sides. All of this went away though and I rarely feel things, although sometimes that heavy feeling comes back.